I wanted to highlight some of the changes we're making to mold and draft display. First change is under view. We now have a name change to pull direction view, and there we can have pull direction view set to current, and then again view, pull direction view, show colors. So there's our colors, and the first thing you're going to notice is that we now have a key that's being shown. So this is showing the undercuts, the 0 degrees draft, and the whatever the user specifies, 0 to 5 in this case. We could also change that key. So if we go back to pull direction view and go on rainbow colors, we now have a rainbow display instead of a 3 or 4 color display. Let's put that back to standard colors. And we also have the ability now to show the vector, and you can see it's got a little label called pull direction. We're going to talk more about this in a minute. And then the last little thing I wanted to highlight under pull direction view is the flip. So we can now flip it. So even though the pull direction is still being viewed from the same direction, we've just flipped the colors. So let's just flip that back. So that's a quick recap of the changes under the view pull direction view. And now if we go into the mold palette, let's take a look at the set pull direction command. Now the first thing to see here is that we're showing the current pull direction vector. This is the vector as it is currently defined. Along the dynabar we have a whole bunch of new options, and I'll come back and talk about these in a second. If I hold down the G key and rotate, you can see that I'm rotating the view and the pull direction vector all as one. One thing that is new is that if I just hold the stylus button on the phantom and rotate, what I'm now doing is rotating the model relative to the pull direction. In effect, it's a dynamic pull direction, so you can rotate this around and you can basically pick the best pull direction for the model that you have. And then when you're happy, you can hit apply and it'll update the old pull direction to this new pull direction. I can come back to the first button in my dynabar and hit view from, and that'll look down that vector. You can also see that in the X, Y and Z we now have the definition of that pull direction vector in X, Y and Z. If I hit F2 and hit set to view, that will reset to the current view. But remember, I have to hit the apply button to actually update the pull direction to this new interim analysis, if you like. I can come here to the X direction and I can actually start changing that X direction, and you see the colors updating as we're moving around. And if you get to something that you're happy with, then again you can hit apply to actually change the pull direction to this new direction. We can also turn off the colors, turn them on or off. When they're on, we can use rainbow colors, or we can hit flip colors. Flip actually flips the pull direction as opposed to just flipping the colors. And then show pull direction turns the existing pull direction on or off. And then sync colors, what that does is that as you're moving things around, you see if it's switched off, then we're not syncing the colors. You can see the colors aren't updating. So it's normally a good idea to have that turned on. Now a lot of this functionality already existed before version 12, it's just that it was kind of hidden and a lot of people didn't really know about it. The thing that is new in version 12 is the ability to hold down the button on the stylus and rotate the model dynamically to dynamically define and then analyze the best pull direction, and then as soon as you're happy, hit apply and you can carry on with your next stage of modeling. The next change I wanted to discuss is some new functionality we've put into fixed draft and fixed draft selection. What you see on the screen right now is a simple hexagon shape with an embossed rectangle. You can see the pull direction. If I look along the pull direction, it looks like this, and then you can see the rectangle that we need to do the draft fixing on. And if we rotate around, you get a better idea of where the undercuts are. So let's go to Fixed Draft Selection, select that area, set the draft direction to something that makes sense, in this case 5 degrees, and then fix by adding clay and hit the apply button. And there we see the result. Whilst the result is technically good, from an aesthetic point of view, it may not be acceptable. You may have wanted the draft to have come off equally on all 4 sides of that rectangle. And here's where some of this new functionality in Fixed Draft Selection and Fixed Draft come in. And this is where we can have a separate tool vector from our pull direction vector. So let me undo this. And if I go through and show you the workflow, it'll make more sense as we're working through it. So here's the front, but if I look normal to that rectangle, this is really the view that I want to do the fixed draft selection to end up with an aesthetically pleasing result where the draft fixing this rectangle comes off equally on all 4 sides. So I can come to my set tool vector and I can set the vector to the current view. And note here as well that I have sync colors turned off. So this is keeping the colors in the same direction as the pull vector as opposed to the tool vector. Then I can go back to the tool, and then this time when I hit the apply button, you can see the result. And now there's hardly a change there. So I'm going to undo that, type in a much bigger number like 30 degrees and hit apply. And now we're starting to get a much more aesthetically pleasing result, even though we still have that undercut problem. So I hit undo and change my draft angle to something that probably will fix it, like just over 60 degrees. Hit apply again. And there is the result. It's right on the edge of being fixed, but you can see how we have equal draft on all 4 sides of that rectangle, so it's a much more pleasing aesthetic result. Now if I undo this, go back to set tool vector, and this time hit sync colors, we're now syncing the colors to the tool vector direction as opposed to the pull vector direction. And because we really want to analyze this for mold undercuts for the pull direction, this doesn't make too much sense, but I'm just showing you the difference there between syncing the colors and not syncing the colors. The last of the changes I want to discuss with mold are under the options. So let's bring up options, and we have a new category here called pull direction. Bunch of things here, I'll come back and discuss some of these in a second, but the first one to look at is the tool vector direction. So this is related to the tool vector that we were just looking at as opposed to the pull direction vector. And you can see there's 3 options here. Always reset to active pull direction, which is what we're defaulted to. Shared for all features or unique for all features. So this is where you would have a different tool direction vector for fixed draft selection or fixed draft, or even different pieces, for example. That's still being worked on. Or you can have it unique for all features. We also have vector centering here, so this is the vector you see. Right now it's fixed to piece bound center. If I put it to piece origin and hit OK, you can see that that vector is now going through the piece origin. If I come back to options and reset it to fixed, not a lot of difference there, because the piece origin and the global origin are going through each other. Or we can go to the piece bound center, and there you can see it going through the piece bounds. And now I'm just going to bring up a new model to discuss the last of those option changes. So here's a different model to discuss the last of the option changes. Let's come to the front, set this to my pull direction, show the colors, and there we see how we have a problem around the nose. Let's go to options, and right here we have link fixed draft angle to draft color angle, normally this is switched off, and if we have this switched off and then go into fixed draft selection, for example, then as I change the draft angle, for example, to 15 degrees, you see the colors don't update. Now if I go back to options and link that, go back into fixed draft selection and select the nose area. This time as I change the draft angle, you can see the colors are updating. So you have the option to link the displayed draft angle to the draft angle that's going to be fixed. Now there's been quite a few changes here we've discussed in this video, and I just want to finish by letting people know that this is definitely a work in progress. We realize that we have some work to do with draft and mold in general. This is just one of the first steps on the way to a much better and more usable, more fully featured draft module.